A moment ago, I talked about the letter Q. Now I'm going to talk about the letter R. Everybody says it comes from the Hebrew Rosh, meaning head. Albright said that there's these pictures of human heads in profile and straight on in Serabit El Kedim, the mines there, the turquoise mines that the Hathor worshippers were making proto-Sinaitic inscriptions in, inventing kind of the proto-Sinaitic alphabet and beginning the transition from this beautiful and complex Egyptian hieroglyphic system to a much streamlined alphabetic system or abjadic system, if you want to call that, as people are tending to call the Semitic Roman letter R comes nowadays from the Hebrew or Phoenician or otherwise Semitic letter Resh. Most people say Resh comes from Rosh, meaning head. And a lot of like metaphorical kind of meanings that anything, the word head will always have other meanings because it's the top of something and it's primary, etc. Once again, my fool Albright comes out with this paper, and this is a much more reasonable inference on Albright's part, I think. You've got human heads drawn in those inscriptions in the mine, human heads facing forward, human heads in profile, and they said, well, this might correspond to the letter Rosh before it was greatly simplified into this little almost pennant flag looking thing. It's just a stroke that goes up and a little stroke off the side like a serif. It's pretty much like a lowercase Roman R, going the other way since they write the other way. So it makes sense to say that this head was simplified into this stroke because the cursivization, as you could call it, does these simplifying effects in scripts as they develop from more detailed to more quickly written prioritization, like what you see in Demotic coming from Egyptian hieroglyphic. The Demotic forms they end up with a lot of forms that are very similar to Greek and Roman forms of letters, even though they had different origins because they kind of reduced down to a certain natural hand motion, and there's a limited number of easy, natural, and lazy hand motions that you can do with the muscles in your forearms. But this is kind of following an assumption to a conclusion that it's not actually taken an exam. Remember that the Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions, we just have Laba'alat. We just have this one phrase that can give us a pretty good idea of what a few of these letters are, but it only accounts for a few of them. And there's no R in Ba'alat, unless you're an Egyptian who confuses R's and L's, as opposed to, the Egyptian doesn't specifically. The Egyptian language has the reputation of not knowing the difference between R and L, like some East Asian languages today. So my problem with Albright's suggestion is it's an inference that you could decide that makes sense to you, but at the same time, it is unsupported. It is fundamentally unsupported. It's an interpretation that doesn't have a second leg, let alone a third or fourth. Oh my God, I've been talking for 6 minutes on this thing. So what else could it have been from? If you open JSesh, which I recommend you look for the value, the sound value, RS. RS, that's how you would spell Resh or Rosh usually. Like 4 of them at least. I search for RS in my hieroglyph app, JSesh. You can download it for free. Really fun. And search for RS and you can see these 4. I'll show you a number of shapes that have already the same basic shape as the Resh. In other words, if it came from this, it wasn't greatly simplified. It was in origin, that shape. This shape, an abstraction, I think, was directly borrowed already at the abstraction level. I'll show it to you. And what do they have in common? It's not their essential nature, it's their shape, their visual depiction if you squint your eyes, made them all blurry. They're just the same shape. So, my argument, I don't even have to say. My argument is look at it. That's Resh, an Egyptian, borrowed directly as Resh, abstractly, into your Alphabetic inscriptions and the other places of origin of the Proto-Sinaitic script. I said this was going to be simple and short.